Welcome, everyone, to episode 114 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. If you're joining us for the very first time, welcome. If you're somebody who has been tuning in every single week, thank you so much for coming back again. I am one of your hosts, Withered Wang, Jared Hornbeck. I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm really wondering, is there another Vegas Vixen here to crunch some numbers with me on our financial state investment that we have going on here?
Absolutely there is. It's me, Steve the Word Guntley, and this is the podcast about slot machine eyes, tooth jackpots, and of course goulette wheels. And that's because this is the podcast about the haunted casino, aka Dead Man's Hand, a kind of old westy kind of ghost story sort of thing, like kind of a modern day Western kind of vibe to it. I don't know, a little bit of a gangster thing. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, but it does bring a couple of horror heavy hitters to the Full Moon Library for the first time, weirdly. We'll talk about it as we get into it, but first we need to introduce our exciting guest, a really cool person coming here to join us. Who has joined us here today?
Oh, absolutely. We are blessed with the presence today of someone who if you're a person who listens to horror podcasts and, dips your toe at all in the horror online community, you definitely have heard her voice before. I'm talking about someone who is a comedian, a critic, and a podcast host of the wonderful Katie Afraidy podcast. It is Katie Hettenbach herself. She's here. What's up, Katie?
Hello, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Excited and terrified to be here to talk about this. Why did I pick this one,
Well, I can answer that for you. You gambled. But you took a gamble. You spun the wheel. You rolled the dice. You picked a movie you'd never heard of.
I pulled the dead man's hand.
You pulled the dead man's hand.
I did. You gave me options, and I was like, I like that cover. That one looks fun.
Look, hey, that is often how Charles Band distributes his movies, as we've discussed. Like he starts with a poster and a title, and they go from there. So like you're already in the right mindset if you're just identifying it off of the cover and going with that. Like that's the right mindset to come to a Full Moon movie.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wait, so how many movies has he written or done?
As written and directed, it's hard to say exactly. It's in the 40s or 50s of movies that he's directed himself.
Yeah, it's under 100. I'm pretty sure we're in double digits of stuff that's directed him as a director. I feel like we had an episode where one of our guests actually pulled that number up because they were doing a movie that was directed by him. But for the purposes of our show, where we're looking at movies that he produced also in some capacity, and if we even factor in stuff he has he's not credited as an executive producer,
right?
But did. I mean, we're at somewhere between 400 and 500.
Yeah. He's and we discovered recently, like errant gold miners, we found a new vein of Charles Band movies that was not even on our spreadsheet, and they're all kind of low rent, nudie flicks about jungle women and stuff like that. So we have a whole slew of those to look forward to that we didn't even know were coming up. So
damn, well, you guys are set for at least 600 more episodes.
It's true. Yeah. And that's not even, and then we're going to go back and we're going to start doing noir versions of all the episodes we've covered already. We're going to do some compilations, just kind of snip from here and there and mash them all together.
Be pointed out also that Charles Band is still alive and still active and still putting about 16 movies out a week. It seems.
The man works at a ludicrous clip.
See, you asked me how many movies he produced or directed, and I pulled it up on my IMDb. But as I was speaking, that number was changing and increasing.
Yeah, It's just a counter. Yeah, it's just rolling over. It's like a McDonald's sign. Number served. Yeah,
that's amazing. Oh my god.
I'm curious about what is all of y'all? This is a bit of a tangent, really, but what is y'all's experience with casinos, with gambling? Does the gambling casino vibe work with your aesthetic at all?
I'm in LA, so it's a 4-hour drive from Vegas. I love Vegas. The first time I went was in high school for a basketball tournament for my dad's job, and that was like I saw David Copperfield the first day. Kind of
Nice.
sketchy now because you're like he's definitely was into kids, which makes sense because we did make googly eyes at each other. But at the time, I was like, I want to be a magician, and I was like, didn't think that he wanted. Anyways, but we were in a limo. We were staying at the Palms. I did gamble in high school because my mom didn't know how to hit the slot machine. I'm like, you do this, and then I did get in trouble. But I was like, she just didn't know how to do it, and I was like, I got this. And then I went back. I've been back since I've lived in LA. I think 4 times.
Okay.
And did my 27th this year in Vegas.
Okay.
And
Nice.
oh my God. Oh, so fun. I only gamble $20 because that's, and I always do a slot machine.
Yeah.
I'm scared of the tables, but blackjack would be my game of choice.
Yeah,
But
mine too.
here's the thing though. I love Austin Powers so much that I definitely would do the I'll stay. And I would quote that the whole time, and they'd be like, you know what, we're going to ask you to leave. I'm like,
yeah, like people at the table are like, this is a cooler. This is a plant.
Yeah.
Like, the casino put her here to hijack our game.
But at the same time, $20 well spent. You slap down that 20, you break out that reference, and then you leave happy. Like that's $20 well spent.
I appreciate you bringing up this tangent, Steve, because I never really thought we'd have the opportunity to talk about it on the show. But if anybody needs if I need any more nerd accreditation than I already have, back in 2012, I was hosting a night of bar trivia here in New York City. And the company that I was working for, it really started as just me and another guy. Like he was doing an independent thing. I went to him to ask him advice on how to start my own bar trivia night. And he was just like, hold that thought. I'm looking to expand. Like, let's work together. He started a company. He actually went on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, coincidentally, and won 250 grand. And in the same calendar year, which I think was in the year of 2011 or maybe into 2012, he was on Jeopardy and won multiple nights. So all of a sudden he had all of this like this extra income to start the company. Long story short, he kind of spearheaded this thing called it was like the World Series of Bar Trivia or something like that. And there was actually like a championship tournament thing that was held in Vegas. So I got to fly to Vegas to work and host at this national, the biggest collection of nerds outside of like a Star Trek convention or something like that. But I got to stay in Vegas for like a couple of days, and that has been my only Vegas experience. Being on the East Coast, I've been to Atlantic City a ton of times.
Sure.
Because my family, New York City isn't that far from the Jersey Shore. So like we would go get a house for like a week on the Jersey Shore in the summer, and maybe like a couple nights a week we would go to Atlantic City. Usually you gamble a little bit and they give you like free nights here and there and stuff like that. I remember one of my favorite casino moments, because I do like casinos for a very short period of time. Like I like them for like one singular night of like gambling. But I watched a woman get off of a Atlantic City bus and go into, I forget, Caesars or something like that. And she had a fanny pack, and she opened the fanny pack and she took out just like $100 bills. And she basically went to this roulette wheel, I think, and put 100 down, got her chips, whatever, placed the bet, lost it. And she did this 10 times in a row over the course of about 2.5 minutes. And she lost all $1,000. She looked at me because I'm standing next to her, and she just kind of goes, well, I guess this isn't my table. And then she reaches back into her fanny pack and walks away and goes to another table. And I was like, that right there is the life.
Yikes. That's horrifying to me personally. I mean, I've been to Vegas a handful of times. I've always had a good time, but I weirdly grew up in a casino town, and my very first job when I was like 14
grew up in a
years old.
casino.
But basically, my very first job when I was 14 years old was as a busboy in a casino diner. I lived in Cripple Creek, Colorado, which is one of the only places in the entire state where gambling was legal. So we had like a whole bunch of like old timey like casinos in this tiny little mountain town, and I would bust tables there, and I learned pretty quickly the perils of gambling addiction, because I would see like my elementary school, middle school, high school teachers come in 8 a.m. on a Saturday and not leave until we close. And it's just like, oh boy, okay, yeah, you're an educator. You're just sitting at this you're just sitting at this slot machine all day long, just hoping you'll break even. That's some scary, like, compulsive behavior, and so it kind of scared me away from it. But
did you start your own casino and get Robert Goulet to perform?
I tried. Vera said that.
Shut up.
Your manager says to shut up.
It's also like, okay, there's this very weird thing, but I love the smell of a casino.
Same.
But it's the faint smell of cigarettes and then fresh air at this like the fake pumping in air.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
and
know
just
why.
like a little
It
bit
just-
of chicken finger. Yeah, just a whiff of chicken
it
finger.
smells so good. I can't I don't smoke cigarettes. But it's just so good. It's so I don't like cigarettes at all, but I'm like, this smell is.
I think that's by design. I think they know that, like, you know, having all of that like years worth of cigarette smoke just kind of built into the carpets, so people walking around, and then they pump in all that fresh air and oxygen, so you're alert and you don't know what time it is, and you don't get tired, and you stay gambling. That's why we'll talk about the way that this casino is sort of designed poorly, I might say, in this movie, because you don't want people to have an idea of what's going on outside of the casino, and you really don't want mirrors either.
No, because that's a whole thing. But I was with you, and I think that's kind of why I was vibing a little bit with this movie, because I was getting a little bit of that like early casino nostalgia, you know, because even if you go to Vegas now, it's not really the same. All the slot machines are like Big Bang Theory, you know, and it's just like, oh man, you got 4 Sheldons, you know, you win a token. Like, they all look like these elaborate like word puzzles, and it's like I don't really understand the rules of these anymore. But there is something simple about like 3 little rotary dials and a 1-arm bandit, and just like the clinking and the clacking and the bells, like that still kind of has like a primal sort of appeal for me, just bringing me back to my childhood. And I'm glad that they embraced that aesthetic. This is like an old timey casino in this movie, and it's not, you know, the highly digital like resort, you know.
Right, and I'm with Katie too, where like blackjack would be my game, although admittedly I don't think I'm very good at it. Like I think I know like the basics, and I know like when you should kind of stay or hit, you know, or double down on a hit. But I think I'm sort of that person who, like, I'm not apt enough at the game to like recognize like how my call will affect the other people at the table. Like I'm sort of, I feel like at some point in my life I've royally fucked up someone else's hand.
Oh yeah.
Whoever that person is, I retroactively apologize for whatever I might have cost you.
That's also a saving grace for me, that I am so criminally bad at any casino game that's pretty easy to dissuade me from getting addicted to it. Like, blackjack's the game I'm best at, and I've never won a hand of blackjack at a casino before. I liked
Spanish 21 because I felt like that was like a blackjack for dummies game where there's just like more 10 cards in the deck to kind of like make it feel like you have a better grasp of it. But that's why I think I like roulette also, because I feel like roulette is the kind of game you could play for a while. Like you can bet small, and you can bet just red or black, and you can kind of stay at a table for a while and get a couple hours worth of gambling in and break even. Yeah. Which I feel like is winning. Like if you're breaking even in a casino, you're winning.
Pretty good.
You're only playing with the house's money. But, you know, we're talking about casinos. Why don't we talk specifically about the haunted casino? Steve, why don't you fire off some stats about this movie for us?
Why don't I? The Haunted Casino, aka Dead Man's Hand. Better name. Let's just say it. Better name.
I
It was
also saw this another as also like Casino of the Damned in some territories.
okay.
Also,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
I believe it.
one of the 3 title ones.
Definitely one of those. This was released July 3rd, 2008, and it was directed by Charles Band, written by Dominic Muir as August White. And it stars Scott White, Robin Sidney, Sid Haig, Wes Armstrong. I almost said Wes Anderson. That'd be weird. Lily Raines, Rico Simonini, Jessica Morris, Christopher Logan, Kristen Green, Kevon Reese, and Michael Berryman. All right, so The Haunted Casino was originally released under the much better title Dead Man's Hand, and it still bears that title in a couple of markets. But like you said, it also has the Casino of the Damned in there. It also has the Haunted Casino, and I believe it was also here released in some markets I see as Fletch. Interesting. Weird. There's already a movie called Fletch. So that's
Chevy
just
Chase
confusing.
isn't in this movie.
You know what? This is not like too far above his pay grade. Like I think he would at this time in 2008. I think he could pop up in this.
Yeah.
This movie is the first and I think only at bats for 2 absolute legends of the genre and 2 of the most distinctive looking faces in history, I think. First is the late, great Sid Haig, who plays the ghost of mobster Roy the Word Donahue. Now, a little bit about Sid Haig. He was born in California, the son of Armenian immigrants, and he became an actor in the early 60s, booking roles on TV shows like The Untouchables. Now, he's got this very distinctive face. He's got this, like, bald head and this kind of scraggly beard and just kind of this intense look to him. So he got cast to play a lot of heavies, a lot of villains, and a lot of like thugs and monsters, and that was kind of his stock and trade. In the late 60s, he became friends with an exploitation filmmaker named Jack Hill, who cast him in multiple kind of cult film movies, including Spider Baby, which is a very weird, very interesting movie if you've ever seen that, and a couple of very important early blaxploitation movies, Foxy Brown and Coffee, both of which star Pam Grier, both of which are considered kind of some of the most important of that genre. So he worked steadily throughout in TV and film throughout the 80s, but by the 90s, he'd grown tired of playing thugs and criminals. He's kind of a, he like a lot of horror heavies. He was kind of a sweet artistic guy off screen, and didn't really want to be playing a monster all the time. So he retired from acting and got his certification as a hypnotherapist. So that's an interesting thing I did not know about him. Weird. And he was so dedicated to acting, or to never acting again, that he even passed on the role of Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction, which Quentin Tarantino wrote for him. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino, big fan of those early Jack Hill movies, Absolutely. So he remembered him. Haig said he later regretted that decision, and Tarantino made it up to him by writing him a role as a judge in Jackie Brown. So he got to be into the Tarantino universe a little bit. But it wasn't until 2003 that Haig's career would kind of enter this sort of surprising new chapter when he got cast as the psychotic clown Captain Spaulding in Rob Zombie's directorial debut, House of a Thousand Corpses, which led to kind of a minor renaissance as like a horror heavy this late in his career. I would say that period probably reached its apex in 2005 with The Devil's Rejects, which is one of those sequels that kind of improves on the original in every conceivable way. And it's just like I don't like House of a Thousand Corpses. I think it's got some stylish stuff in there. I think it shows that I think Rob Zombie can be a really effective filmmaker when he gets out of his own way. Devil's Rejects was him getting out of his own way. I think maybe for the only real time in his career. And I think that movie's pretty fantastic.
feel like your description right there is kind of where I fall with like every Rob Zombie movie, basically, where I'm like never really that much of a fan, but I appreciate that, he's making something from the perspective of someone who grew up a horror obsessive. And like, there's times when I feel like that works well enough, even if the subject matter isn't something I'm necessarily interested in. And then there's times I feel like it's to its detriment, where it's like, okay, like he clearly loved Halloween. He wanted to remake Halloween from the perspective of giving us more Michael Myers backstory. No one needs that.
No.
So
we didn't want that. We didn't want that. Didn't want it. Rob Zombie's Halloween hurts me. And I was like, did we need that? No, how is this helping the story? What?
Yeah, what are we? Yeah.
We're but at this point, you just go, sure, let's keep going, I guess. Why not? Let's just, sure, what else you got?
I have
What
a
else you got?
moderately potentially controversial statement to make, which is that I not too long ago revisited Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Hmm.
And I actually found that I like it way more than his first Halloween movie.
Yeah, I'm with you
And
on
that I
that.
think there's stuff in it that works. I think like overall, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily successful, but I do think there's stuff in it that actually is pretty cool. Not the whole like completely unnecessary like knights in white satin in its entirety section,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but there's some gore moments in it where I'm like, oh, that's pretty brutal. Like that's cool. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't like the gore aspect. I like it was just I don't want any Michael Myers psychology because for me, I always, wow. I was going to say I famously say that. Let me preface by saying nothing I have ever said in my life has been said famously. Um, I always say that like I grew up watching horror movies as a little kid, but then and I even saw a couple Halloween sequels before the original, and then when I saw
Mhm.
the original, it was like the first actual horror movie that scared me.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
And I love it so much for that reason. And that was sort of like the one where I recognize like how effective the simplicity of that story is. And it was like, oh, no one, it's so much scarier when you don't know why
Yeah.
this force, the shape is doing these things like that. And so like
Mhm.
I want to just take a quick digression here to say, I'm talking here about like, I had seen all the Freddys to this point, all the Jasons to this point, a couple Halloween sequels, probably Texas Chainsaw, and then backward I went to Carpenter's Halloween.
Mhm.
But Katie, you're a person who you're a podcast, so you could use this opportunity to talk a little bit about your
Mm.
show.
Yeah.
Your show is put out through Fangoria, and we have a great relationship with Fangoria. A lot of Fangoria contributors and people have been guests on our show, and it's just people that I also know just through everyday life and the kind of circles that I run with as well. So I'm just curious, like for you, like Steve and I have both talked a lot about being video store kids, walking down the aisles, finding the best looking cover art and discovering movies that way. So like you've devoted your life to watching and analyzing and discussing horror movies. So how did it begin for you?
Oh, I wish I could say I was a video store kid. Um, I feel like that was towards like the way beginning of my life, and
Yeah, you're quite a bit younger than us. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but I do remember going to Hollywood Video a couple times. I think it was never for horror films. I remember it specifically being Cheetah Girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what my uncle and I were like, we're watching this tonight. But yeah, horror film wise, I didn't really get into them till like late middle school, early high school. But I've always liked the dark, the weird and stuff. Again, Scooby-Doo. You rewatch those with like I Nanny occasionally, and I'll be like, oh, let's watch Scooby-Doo. They're terrified. It's creepy.
Mm.
It's so dark, but we're like, oh, it's fine. It's like, no, it actually is really creepy. Like you watch this, like the stuff that we watched as kids is creepier than what like today's kid.
Well,
These kids today.
Yeah.
someone has to teach kids not to meddle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%, 100%. So that's kind of how it started. And yeah, my brother started showing me horror movies. He would actually, I was so scared to watch them with him, but he's 12 years older. So I was like, I want to be in the room with you. So I was like, I'll be behind the couch playing like Animal Crossing or Sims or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
Nintendogs. And he was watching this horror movie, so I could just hear it. But and then eventually I started to actually watch them and, kind of was like, oh, this is actually fun. And the switch was, I think, Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
My brother, I came home was just, it's all about my brother. Honestly, I owe him a lot. Shout out Scott, shout out Scott. But we were watching, or I was watching Cabin in the Woods. Was like, this is terrifying. This is terrifying. This is terrifying. And he walks in. He's like, what are you doing?
Mm.
This is a comedy. And I'm like, Oh, and I don't know why now I'm like every horror movie's a comedy, even if it's not scary or if it's not supposed to be. I'm like, nah, these are all it's all the same.
Yeah.
Horror and comedy are one and the same,
That's a
and
good point. I
No,
think with
there's
the exception of maybe like the coffee table, like there's
yeah,
there's comedy to be mined, like dark comedy
yes,
from
but
basically every horror movie.
it's it's like the timing in the difference between comedy and horror is the music, and
yeah.
that's it, and that's literally it. I bet if you put some silly, I haven't seen Coffee Table yet, but if you put, some silly music behind there, I'm sure it would be funny. But that's literally the only difference, and
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know,
we've
they're
Some
magical.
I've kind of observed that before, like, because yeah, I know you're a comedian, like, I'm in the comedy world here in Austin a little bit, like, and we,
Oh yeah.
so I've thought about like, why does this appeal to, like, why do these two like seemingly polar opposites kind of appeal to me? And it's really all the same thing. Like a slasher movie is the same thing as like a joke setup, right? Like you're building anticipation, you've got a punchline, and you need to kind of subvert expectations right before you deliver the punchline, right? And that's made slasher films so much easier for me to watch, like, because I'm not thinking about how gross and scary it is. I'm thinking about the construction of it, and like, oh, how is this ramping up? How are they using tension here? How are they playing against your expectations? And so, yeah, a good horror film does feel very much like a good comedy bit, like,
Yeah.
absolutely, which I love. Yeah.
Yeah, the best. It's the best. So yeah,
Katie, you brought up Scooby-Doo, and you're actually, a little inside baseball for people who are
Yeah.
listening. You're actually wearing like a long sleeve Scooby-Doo t-shirt or sweatshirt. I can't tell
yes,
really
it's a
what that is.
Sweatshirt.
And I will say, like right off the bat, like we're talking about like, Cabin in the Woods being one of the first like horror movies you watch, but it is a horror comedy.
Yeah.
And I feel like we got to talking about this a few weeks ago when we talked about Sideshow, which is there is this stuff that falls into kind of this YA gateway type horror.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the most Scooby-Doo-ish collection of characters that we've had so far in a movie. So much so that we even have like our Velma character.
Yeah, we do have a Velma. It's been a while since I've seen a character in a movie who is just like a nerd who looks at a calculator and says things like, "Oh, by my calculations, we need to use the borculator to untangle the nexus." Like we haven't seen a character like that in a while.
Oh, I also need to say this because I think it's important for people to know. Because I always like to, when you're watching a horror movie or any movie, normally you can't get it for free on YouTube. I watched this movie for free on YouTube.
Yeah.
That says a lot. That says a lot. And that's all I need to say. And it's not a bad thing, but I'm saying it says a lot.
Yeah,
I love it.
Nobody has a watchful eye over this one.
It's true. It's true. Well, let me talk a little bit about the other kind of big horror luminary in this movie, because that's Michael Berryman, a guy I love. He played Sid Haig's lackey in this film. Now, Berryman was born with a condition called hypohidrotic ectodermal dysplasia, which means he cannot grow hair and he cannot grow fingernails. And he also does not have sweat glands. So he has that, plus an additional, I think he said in an interview, like 25 different birth defects. So, he has a very distinctive look. He's an incredibly intelligent, funny guy. Like if you ever watch interviews with him, he's a delightful interview. He's like really fun on the convention circuit and everything like that. But, his very distinctive appearance kind of helped make him a horror icon. And I think, the first movie I recall seeing him in was as a patient, like kind of in the background of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But I think the thing that most horror fans associate him with is as Pluto in The Hills Have Eyes, which is the early Wes Craven movie about the cannibal family, a truly upsetting movie that I have not gone back to in a while. But he's really memorable in that.
Wes Craven used him again in a movie that I don't think is that good, but he's memorable in it, which is Deadly Blessing.
Yes, yeah, that one is fun. Yeah.
If you've ever, but if you've ever wanted to see like Ernest Borgnine, young Sharon Stone and Ernest Borgnine wearing an Amish beard and a hat, then that's the movie for you.
I'm in. Say less.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and he's also in The Devil's Rejects, so he's in that same world. Apparently, this role was originally written for Bill Moseley, who was also in Devil's Rejects, but he could not do it, so Berryman stepped in. But yeah, he's just been in dozens and dozens of things throughout the years. So always distinctive, always a really fun presence to have in your movie. And strange that this is only the first time that he and Haig have appeared in a full moon movie. But I think they make the most of their what must be a day shoot. I don't think either of these guys were on set more than a day.
Mhm.
It's hard to say who spent less time on set, either them or Gary Busey or Tommy Chong. Like all these people who just have these kind of like one day.
Sure,
walk-ons.
but that being said, I mean the finished product is worlds more enjoyable than both Gary Busey or Tommy Chong.
Yeah.
From Evil Bong and Ginger Dead Man. Like I genuinely think so. Just to kind of give anybody who's listening right now just a really brief overview. Like we talked about casinos. Obviously, this is kind of with this retitling of The Haunted Casino, it really is. We've said this many times. It's taking sort of like the snakes on a plane approach to like marketing a movie, where it's like, okay, we get it. It's a casino and it's haunted. Cool. A young guy inherits it from his uncle. They go to check it out, him and some friends, to see if they can get it up and running again. And they run into some ghosts who are out for revenge, and some silver ? Which is not really introduced until pretty late into the movie.
Yeah.
But that's really what this is about. But I think the Michael Berryman and Sid Haig stuff is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're pretty commanding both when they're on screen. And I have to say, we've already, I think, quoted The Simpsons once in this episode, but there is a real when are they going to get to the fireworks factory feeling in this movie, where it's like you have the first billed person as Sid Haig, who doesn't appear until 45 minutes into your 79-minute long movie.
Right.
Which is a real problem, because it's sort of, I mean, it's so 2007 and everything looks so 2007, and I thought actually the opening scene was pretty good, and then once it cuts to the current characters, and I feel bad. I'm going to call her friend of the show, although this has not been established, but I feel bad a little bit for Robin Sidney, because we've seen her now in probably like 6 or 7 movies that we've covered on the show. And I feel like every single time we bring it up, we're like, well, this movie really doesn't work, or I don't know what they're doing here. But you know what? Robin Sidney's going for it. Like, I was going to say, every time that's what we're saying.
I think I liked this movie more than y'all did. Actually, I was kind of on board with this.
I don't want to make there is stuff I think that. So let's look at it this way then, from like what I do think works. Like, I think the Sid Haig stuff and Michael Berryman stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a few amusing exchanges between the characters, and I do like the idea of the people inheriting this potentially haunted casino. I felt like it just took us way too long to get the introduction of the ghosts, which is kind of par for the course in a lot of these full moon movies. It's about 18 minutes of opening credits, and then some, and then some inciting incident.
Well, and Charles Band loves like kind of a chamber piece. We've covered this many times. Like his movies are a little bit more dialogue heavy than a lot of the other full moon movies. They're a little less like sexploitation-y, and there's just a little bit more about like dialogue and characters, which is a noble instinct that might be overselling a little bit about what people are coming to these movies for, so there's always a little bit of that mix. But I was kind of on board with some of the table setting that they were doing here. They were definitely taking way too long to get to the ghost stuff. They definitely, that is certainly a complaint, but I thought I really liked Robin Sidney, because I thought that she got to play. We've pretty much only seen her play like kind of balls to the wall characters, where she's kind of bringing all this energy, and she's kind of like mugging really big. This is her getting to play a little bit more grounded, and I thought she was very charming. I thought she was very like sweet and just kind of a likable film presence, even if her character doesn't really get much to do other than like be a supporting doting girlfriend, but I
Yeah,
thought she was quite good.
So I wrote the only thing haunted about this movie is the dialogue and the acting. Because I loved the opening. I literally wrote down like the head slam into like the title card. I was like fun, but then immediate. Let's just have couples in bed, just chatting, just pairs of people chatting, and I was like, what? And then it just kept going. Again, I've never seen any of his movies, so this was me going in fully blind, was just like, what's happening? But I mean, there was also some funny moments, like the fake sex stuff where they were like faking. I don't know why they were again faking having just have the real thing. If you guys say you're a couple, just do it.
Yeah.
But it was very much giving like Forgetting Sarah Marshall,
Sure.
where they're,
Yeah,
I was
Where
like,
they're
that's
competing. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's absolutely
I will say
hilarious.
they went for the what I feel like in that moment is the less obvious joke. I felt like
Yeah.
having the like headboard and wall banging start right when they bring it up was where the joke was going to end. But then when it went into that, they were just like like she's just laying on her stomach, like doing her nails or reading a magazine or something, and he's just pounding the wall with his arm. I thought was pretty funny. The character, but I will say like I was saying like I did find that like I like the stuff with the ghost just takes a while to get there. And there's a quote by the character Jimbo, and I wrote this quote down verbatim because this quote comes about 44 minutes into the movie, and I was like, man, if this doesn't echo exactly how I feel watching this.
Yeah.
He said he's talking to the Velma character in this movie, her name is Emily, played by an actress named Lily Raines. But he says, as much as I like this whole idea of a haunted casino, I mean, the ghost thing is pretty cool, but I haven't seen anything that strange around here. I'm like, yeah, you and me both, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. There was a bit of that, but I mean, like, I was enjoying a lot of the things they were setting up. Also, I want to give a shout out because this is one of the very rare occasions of a queer character in a full moon movie that's not directed by David Dakota, and it's actually like a positive representation, even though they kind of abandon that thread completely. Like they introduce it, they seem to kind of set up that she might be having a flirty thing with the other girl, and then they never interact again. So points for teeing it up, even if they forgot to take a swing at it. But they did try. And
well,
I'm like,
can you blame her?
Yeah.
Can you blame her for wanting to look at Melissa's awesome website?
It must be a great website.
It's
she got
amazing.
an Angel Fire site up. Yeah, it's awesome.
Now, okay, this is random, but I do have to ask.
Sure.
Do all of the full moon movies, the universe, if you will, do they like every moment had some type of music under it? There wasn't like a silent moment, which is it gave like student film because like we always feel like we're afraid of silence.
Right.
I was like, are you afraid of silence, my dear friend? Because we don't need this weird stuff underneath. We could just have it be creep. I think it'd be creepier if they just took out a couple of, or just like faded out some of the songs.
Yeah,
I think it would have been so good. And I'm like, why did you put that there?
I agree, and that is a thing. Like, it's not even something I really thought about up to this point, but yeah, it's kind of a thing, and it goes back to like similarly, like that used to be really distracting to me when I would watch old episodes of the X-Files, because like there is that kind of like droning music like underneath every scene, and I'm like, yeah, I do like it better when it's like totally silent, but it kind of evokes like TV filmmaking a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was like. This is also like CSI, like giving it's giving almost like TV and not movie.
Yeah,
I noticed that. I noticed that too, and I made a note of it as well. And because a lot of times in whether it's the Empire films or a lot of the full moon movies or even some of the ones before that, Charles Band's brother, Richard Band, is a really outstanding composer and composed a lot of the memorable themes to those movies. So I was like, all right, well, yeah, like you're saying, I noticed the same thing, that I was like, there's music all the time, almost as if like it's a silent movie. And I was like, oh, well, who composed this thing? and it was really a really bizarre kind of. I opened it, and it's credited to, I don't know if this is a collection of musicians or a person called District 78.
Okay.
And what this person or group have basically been known for have been being a music producer on like stuff like current TV shows, like a musical director for like Dancing with the Stars and The Masked Singer and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's a very weird like choice for scoring a movie like this. I mean, I think we could have got, a more subdued Richard Band type score on something like this, I'm sure, because he was doing the stuff, I think, the Full Moon stuff still in 2007. But like,
Yeah.
talk about also like, I mean, I guess Dancing with the Stars and Masked Singer are more recent, but I don't know, man, were these with this alleged band that Skeeter's in were called American Idol rejects. So
Yeah.
maybe District 78 were they had some connection to American Idol. That was the thing. So I'm gonna, full disclosure, I watched this twice.
Okay.
I watched
Hell yeah.
it once regular,
Mhm.
and then so this is the third movie that has been given the noir treatment
Yeah.
on the Full Moon app. So what they've been doing is, in addition to the Pulp Noir, which is kind of like the new sub-label of movies that they've been putting out that are supposed to be a little bit darker, a little edgier in some ways, they've also been doing these noir black and white versions of other like Empire and Full Moon classic
I
movies.
watched it. I watched it in black and white.
Nice. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I
yeah.
didn't realize that you did. And I was going to say the opening scene I thought worked well for a couple of reasons. One, if you watch the regular movie, I watched it on the Full Moon app. I mean, it's shot digitally, early digital, and it's in 4:3 aspect ratio. Like it looks like you're watching it on someone's television set. When you watch the noir version, so interestingly, it was stretched to 16:9. I think. I mean, it was filling my screen, and it looked bigger than the regular presentation did, but it didn't have that weird slowed down frame rate thing. So it was still playing, still the same length, and everything was the same. I thought the opening scene looked better in black and white. I thought the kind of shadows that are cast were a little bit more noticeable and upfront. I felt like the zapping, exploding face looked cool in black and white. And then I also thought that the head banging into the glass looked better in black and white too, because CGI broken mirror glass circa 2007 doesn't look great. But if you put it in black and white, it actually looks better. The problem then I had is that when you cut to the stuff that's just here, I mean, it's all present day, but the stuff that's present day, it's like 2007, and you're dealing with the current characters. Everything is so like obviously stamped 2007. I'm like, they're practically wearing Affliction t-shirts. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
maybe there's an Ed Hardy in there somewhere.
Right.
100%,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I think, Charles Band did a little introduction on the noir version where he talked about how when they were making this movie, that was something he wanted to be conscious of, and he wanted it to have a timeless sort of like shadowy noir feel to it. Well, if that was the case, then I think you could have either backdated it a little bit and made it a little less egregiously 2007. You could have had it be, I mean, it could have been taking place in the 40s or 50s, and you could have had, like The Shining, it could have been the Overlook in the 20s or something like that.
Yeah.
But putting it, then it just takes, those two styles clash so much that anytime something wasn't happening in the casino, it looked worse, in my opinion, in black and white than it looked in color. But I think it's just one of those things where it's like, when it goes to the actual casino, it's like, okay, they're using the space a little bit more, and that's the time when the noir worked. And then it works once you have the ghosts there. But anytime it's just your kind of group of lead characters in black and white, I felt I was taken out of it immediately.
Now, I do want to give some shout outs to it takes a long time for them to come around. but I actually really enjoyed the kills and the creature effects in this movie. This is the first time that Charles Band is using John Lechego, who I believe is kind of his go-to special effects guy to this day. And so I think he's flexing a little bit and showing what he can do. So I think that opening scene where like the supervisor gets like his face like turned into a skull and real close up, like it's just like a flash. I thought that was pretty good.
Agreed.
They forgot later in the movie that, you know, his face was blown off, but like still it was cool shot. And then we get like
that's just a wee detail. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But like then we get some like kind of interesting creature effects. Like the one ghost turns into a slot machine eyed like demon monster.
Was crazy. What was it? I literally wrote word for word. I'm gonna read it to you.
Okay.
Hot woman tried to sleep with the guy, and then her eyes are slot machine, and then it kills the other girl.
Yes,
that's
nailed it.
What?
That's about the long and short of it.
You got it.
That's the movie, kids. That's
the movie. That's what you can expect. But like, that's just props for them not leaving money on the table there. You know, if you're going to be doing about a movie about a haunted casino, it's pitched at this level. You don't really need to super worry about logistical consistency or anything like that. Why not make a ghost monster with slot machine eyes? Like, why the fuck not?
It was perfect. I didn't expect it, and I was like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
And then to have the if we're jumping around, the ending with the when they're at the blackjack table, and the dealer turns into like a doll person,
kind of a weird like ginger dead man sort of looking thing. Yeah.
It was really creepy. I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Well, and also, you know, I want to give it up to the blackjack dealer because he was the lead maniacal millionaire probably in 1999 in Blood Dolls.
Oh, he was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Blood Dolls was a really fun one that Steve and I love to bring up. As anytime we kind of find like a hidden gem in these movies, we really like to champion them. And it's like any opportunity we get to bring it back to Blood Dolls.
Yeah,
so I liked that performance.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that was really cool. Like, it's still like stylistically, it didn't really make sense for that dealer to turn into whatever he turned into. Like, I was hoping they would keep up the casino theme in some way, but like I'm okay with it. I'm glad that he turned into a little gross monster, and I'm glad that they had some fun gore stuff. You know, like you know, a guy gets his dick ripped off, and like another guy gets his arm cut off, and like there's some fun stuff like that happens. It's all a little backloaded, but it's pretty fun.
I will say, and we didn't really take the opportunity to talk about the fact that this is another Dominic Muir one, because he is, you know, famously the author, the screenwriter for the first Critters, which is obviously very well known. But I liked also that some of the people who worked on this movie in terms of the makeup effects or creature design and stuff like that were, I think the name of the guy escapes me, but not there's somebody, not John Lechego. Brandon Wright. Brandon Wright, who worked on Critters 2.
Okay.
Or Creatures Design 2. So we've got a nice little like connection to Critters, which is a fun franchise that I like to talk about whenever I get the opportunity to.
I love Critters.
And I will say also, like, and you see it more in I think in the noir version, especially in that opening scene, Thomas Calloway, who's the DP, using the pseudonym Terrence Riker for this movie, I actually think does frame some shots pretty nicely. Like, I do think there are moments in the movie when, you know, again, this is we use this phrase so often on the show. It's like you meet a movie where it is, and it's this is a cheap,
100%.
quickly made movie. But I think when you compare it to a lot of Full Moon's other middle aughts output, there are a lot more ambitious shots in this movie than there are, say, in like Evil Bong, which takes place inside like one room, essentially. So I do like to give a shout out to those people, because like,
for sure,
Steve came through before saying like he feels like he liked this movie more than we possibly did. I mean, I wouldn't say it was one of my favorites, but I did find things to like in it, and I thought that the Sid Haig and Michael Berryman ghosts were pretty fun in black and white. And I do think that like this is comparatively, especially like pretty competently shot, and we've got some people working on some of the creature effects or some of the makeup effects who, you know, would go on to either had worked in some pretty impressive areas or would go on to be more. I know John Lachego, I think, is the one who, if I'm not mistaken, took over like a lot of the Killjoy stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think he went on to direct like a bunch of the Killjoy sequels, like maybe starting I guess after Killjoy 3, because that's all we've covered up to on the show, but I think there's other Killjoy stuff that he did as well. So I think when you hold this up comparatively, it's like I can see the ambition that's there in here. I feel like I would have liked it, I think, if this went a little bit darker and felt less gateway horror, like it ends up feeling. Like we talked about that in Sideshow, how it felt a lot like a freeform ABC Family 31 Nights of Halloween type movie.
Yeah.
And I get that vibe here a lot of the time, but it's also tonally inconsistent because then you have like the dick ripping part, which like, hey, listen,
love a good dick rip.
love a good dick rip. Like,
yeah.
But the thing about it is, it's when it happens, it's kind of weird because throughout the whole movie, they really hammer home the point that this guy has erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
And then it's like he's punished for having erectile dysfunction because a ghost is able to make him more. It's weird. I don't know what they're really trying to say here. It would be one thing if he was like super aggressive and handsy and borderline R-wordy, and then
make sense.
So it was like, well, this guy is now just getting an extra layer of dick trauma.
And that left like Jessica Morris, who plays his kind of like bitchy girlfriend, that gives her without like a whole lot to grab onto, like because
she can't grab onto it.
Because it's a withered wang. She uses the term withered wang. But like also like it's like, all right, we think we're gonna kind of peel back some. They keep like kind of teasing that there's a little bit more going on with her, you know, like after she gets really scared, she has this really nice moment with Rob and Sydney where they're like comforting each other. It's like, okay, this is nice. And then we get a little bit of the flirtation with the nerdy girl that doesn't really go anywhere. And then we get like this moment where she's like, no, I'm giving you shit because that's just my way and I act like that, but I really do believe in your band. But then they pull the rug out on that immediately. It's like, no, she doesn't believe in your band. So like, what are you doing with this guy? Like you're just kind of around to torture him. Like,
and okay, why does tell me, because again, I'm not as familiar as you guys are.
No, please.
Why does this feel like a softcore, like porn, like a porn movie?
There's
like
a lot.
You know,
there's a lot of overlap, you know, especially
I'm like, honestly, at this rate, just have like just get it on at this rate, like let's go. But
and that's the fun thing that we've kind of explored, like Charles Band and his movies that he directs in particular. Charles Band is a little skittish about sex and nudity. Like I think he understands as a genre filmmaker there's an expectation, and so he includes some of it sometimes, but he doesn't really. His movies are not like super lascivious. They're not like leering in the ways that like a Jim Wynorski movie or a Fred Olen Ray movie would be. Like he doesn't linger on those details as much, but he's also casting a lot of people who are in both of these worlds, who are in kind of like the softcore world or the soap opera world or things like that. You know, it's a lot of actors of that sort of tier.
You can tell.
You can tell. Hey, and some of them transcend. Some, you know, Jessica Morris still has a long career. She was on The Pit recently, which is a big hit show. Like, you know, so she's still around.
I also have to say, this is what I say with movies, and it took me a while to get to this point, but every movie's good, every movie's bad. And I think going in with that mindset where you're like, there's like, even your favorite movies that you defend till the end of the earth, they're terrible, but they're also great.
And
So it's I looked at this one and I was like, you know what? There are some moments that you're like, hey, this would have been better with more, you know, horror throughout. You know, the couples chatting and that whole, you know, 45 minutes of nothing happening.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, they had some really funny moments in that long time, like the photo shoot scene.
Yeah.
Which that had to be improvised, right? Because he's like, yeah, do that. Yes.
Stick
yes.
your leg up.
Stick your leg up. Yes. It again, Austin is giving Austin Powers with like, yes, yes, no, no, no.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
giving
yeah.
that
Yeah.
very much so. But
Yeah. We
it
sometimes
seemed-
run into the scenes in some of these movies where we're like, yeah, this had to have been either improvised or was sort of like something was written on like a bar napkin. And it was
Yeah.
like, this is, we're rewriting this. This is what you're going to say during this scene. Or
Yeah,
it's like,
100%.
just act natural. It's like, okay, well, what's my direction in the scene? Oh, well, you're doing a photo shoot. Just go with it. And then, they kind of trust the people to come up with some improv lines there. And I do like, it was
shouldn't have.
very funny with him just
No.
like his repeating of like, this is going to look great on your website. It was just such a funny
Yeah.
like
It's a funny
2007 timestamp of like
Mhm.
this digital camera that he's holding, because we do get, this is obviously I think released probably right around the time that the iPhone 3 was coming out, but we get a glorious flip phone in there, which we all had in
Yes.
2007.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the digital camera obviously is separate. I will say, like, yeah, we, some of these people, and, Katie, you mentioned before that it had a TV movie feel through a lot of it. And some of these people, like the person, Wes Armstrong, he's somebody who has had a pretty fruitful TV career. He had a 22 episode arc on Jane the Virgin.
Oh, wow.
He's in the pilot of Party Down. He's
Oh,
in,
yeah.
he's in a lot of stuff, and he's consistently worked in like one episode, two
damn.
episode appearances in TV shows. So yeah, a lot of these people they go on to, and there is that big crossover with like soap opera actors too, and it's in looking at in the parallels between how these low budget movies are made and then how soap operas are made.
Mhm.
We found a lot of respect for soap opera actors, because it's like especially for soap operas, because they're doing so many episodes and they're getting literally pages of a script a day with no real preparation time. But again, like, I don't think anything is specifically written about this one, but like most of the movies we cover, this was something probably from idea to finished product, probably only a few weeks, and probably, a week or 10, actually not even 10 days, probably a week of shooting. And then to get it, edited and put out there. We've been landing on where we're just kind of like, okay, maybe this doesn't work so much here, and we would have liked it to do something else here. But when you look at the limitations of them churning these B movies out, like we've been having these conversations with guests too, where we're just kind of like, man, it's because we've had guests who filmmakers too, and they're like, yeah, it's sort of a miracle that any movie ever gets made.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
No, it is. It is. And I think this one gets more wrong or more right than it gets wrong, like,
Yeah.
and I think Charles Band thought this was going to be a bigger hit than he did, because he actually produced a lot of merch for this movie, and he was like really sort of pushing it hard, and then it just didn't really connect. And this was a time when Full Moon is kind of always struggling to find a distributor, right? They're jumping from different production companies. So like, this would have been coming out of the Shadow Entertainment era, and when they're kind of like just sort of trying to self-finance more and more of their projects, and it's just like a Full Moon funded projects. And so budgets get very small, shoot times get even shorter than they already were, and they don't always have the best luck finding distributors. I think they were exclusively Redbox for a little bit after this, but that didn't really last. And then like, as video stores are starting to disappear, it's harder and harder to get people to just sort of like pick this up off the shelf and take a chance on it, So Full Moon streaming is around the corner for this company, and they're going to find like sort of what the next chapter is going to be. But this is kind of the wilderness period, right? They're throwing some stuff at the wall, and they're seeing what's going to happen and what's going to take. And
and I'll look at 20 to 25 minutes of Michael Berryman and Sid Haig in black and white as ghosts, a million times out of a million before watching the first Evil Bong again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Valid.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's kind of sacrilege, because just to really timestamp this, we're recording on 420, and I'm disparaging Evil Bong on 420, which I feel like can't be good for me.
That's probably bad luck.
It's sacrilege.
Yeah, the Evil Bong is going to come for you.
Uh-oh.
Well, do
Yeah,
we have
you're
any
sorry.
do we have any final thoughts on the haunted casino?
Yeah, I think like there's stuff about it I like. There's areas where I think it doesn't, quite work. I think I was hoping with knowing that it was Sid Haig and Michael Berryman in there that we'd get a little bit more gnarly
Yeah.
stuff than we do, and they play it pretty tame through a lot of it, with the exception of a dick ripping, which we've already addressed.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because like that's when they do kind of amp up the gore effects in some of the moments, that's when the movie's the best, because the dick rip is just like he's holding a hose shooting blood up at his face.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's like someone is between his legs with a super soaker, and it's like
awesome.
yeah, like that's great. Like give me more of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of my final thoughts on it. Is kind of
Yeah.
it falls middle of the road. I think the casino stuff works better in black and white. The stuff that is just exposition between the characters is worse, except for one scene I didn't mention before. There is a scene, and I don't remember because I watched the color version first. There's a scene between JJ and Matthew, between Robin Sidney and Scott White, where she's kind of reassuring him that maybe it's not, that it's all going to be okay. And it is in the black and white version, and the noir version, completely in shadow, and it actually looks kind of cool.
Okay.
It's just they're two silhouettes talking to each other.
Ooh.
And I was like, I like that. I like the way that looked. Like that was somewhere where I felt like they were like, let's have you guys stand this way, and we'll have the shadows kind of line up here. And that was actually pretty artfully done, I will say. But that's kind of my final thoughts on that one. Katie, I'm really curious to hear your final thoughts, because like this was such a gamble for you to choose this movie to come in to be your kind of Charles Band christening as a guest on our show. So how you feeling?
That was wild. I had no idea what to expect, and it was going to be weird.
Yeah.
Didn't know like what level of weird. Honestly, was expecting it to be weirder. I wish it was, but the weird the parts that worked, and I do wish there was more. I'm not a big gore person, but honestly, more people getting, like, if you even just spread out all the killings and like all the hand chopping off, like if you just spread it out, I think that would have worked. Like you could have the same amount, just don't have them all bunched together.
Yeah.
And just space it out, and I feel like it'll be a bigger payoff. But I don't know. Every movie's good, every movie's bad.
Yeah.
Will I ever watch this again? Definitely not.
Yeah.
But you know what? I watched it. I'm glad I did. I got it off the list. I'm honored to have been, this been my first movie with them. But yeah, I also had one final thought on the paper that I wrote. For the final blackjack game, why at the end were they like, we all have to play? Like, you guys don't have to. They could just walk out. They could just leave.
Yeah.
Nothing, and they didn't have to play.
Well, Katie, it feels to me you're not familiar with a little thing called honor.
I know. I'm not. You're right. I'm not. But I'm literally like, hey, friends, this is one of those things where we don't need to play. We could just leave. And I know that every horror movie, you're like, oh, you could just leave the house. You could, and yeah, you could. But it's just that I literally, normally I just say it and I don't actually write it down. This one, I was like, I'm mad at you guys.
Yeah, because the stakes
you
here,
could have left.
the stakes here was just lifetime employment at a rundown casino. Like that was what they were doing it for. And I'm like, but you guys kind of have other things going on. One of you is clearly a scientist because you carry a calculator around, and the other is going to play at the whiskey someday, So yeah, because that's still the dream, right? Everybody's still wanting to do that in 2007. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
The one thing I have in my notes that we didn't mention before is this scene where there's also a very weird edit where it is Skeeter and Melissa stumble upon a room and they go, well, like they're like, whoa, then they hear a noise and they're like, what was that? And then the edit kind of makes you think that they're going to go check it out. And then the next scene starts with two characters walking into a different room, but it's Emily and Jimbo.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, wait, okay, because then they started talking, and I was like, oh wait, that's not the same two people. But that's where they stumble upon the room with the blackjack table, and she's talking about card probability and stuff like that. And it's just like, she's like, oh, how did you know that this card was coming or that this was going to be the hand? And then they reveal that there's a giant mirror directly behind the table,
Yes.
and I'm like, that seems like poor designing. Like, it's like you won't need to count cards if there's a giant mirror behind the dealer.
Yeah.
Like that made me laugh.
That was good.
I mean, I was kind of on board with how goofy this is, and I know there's been a little bit of a lessening of our standards a bit when it comes to movies like this. Like we've watched a lot of these, and so we have to kind of put everything in its own perspective. But I don't know. I had a good time with it. It's simple, it's silly, and it's got a couple of better kill effects than we expect, a couple of better performances than we expect. So I had a good time with it. But I really had a good time. Yeah.
The in black and white, man. The fart scene, glorious.
Oh,
it was just so classy. It was just classed up so much.
Cinema. Yeah, absolutely. You can see the fart in black and white. Yeah, you can really capture it. But it has been delightful having Katie here. Thank you so much for being here and taking a chance on this movie and talking it over with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Where can people find all of your awesome stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at Katie Afraidy on all the social medias, Instagram, YouTube. And yeah, and if you want to find my personal, you can find it through there, because I feel like it's too hard to say it on these things. But yeah, find me through there. But yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been so fun.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah, we're glad you have a good time. And if you check out Katie's channel and her show, you're going to have a good time too. And you're going to find her discussing a movie that you love, and you're going to have fun with it. If you like what we do week to week, then you can jump onto Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star review. And if you're feeling up to it, maybe a brief review, just to let the show get out there and reach a few more people. If you want to keep up with us for promotions and see what we have going on, you can follow us on Instagram at puppetmasters_castlefreaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared, or Steve at Minotaur Matador. We also update what we're doing on Threads and Blue Sky, and audio versions of our show are on our YouTube channel as well. Eventually we'll get into more YouTube content, but you know what? We're in no real hurry, because Steve has another super fun show that he would like to take this opportunity to promote. So Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, I also am the host of a show called Cinemarcade. That is cinema and arcade mashed together into one glorious portmanteau, because that is what we are doing. We are watching movies and then playing the video games based on those movies. So we are 100-something deep on these at this point. I think when we were hearing this, we would have just wrapped episodes on Predator 1 and 2. We did both of those. We did the B movie, this Jerry Seinfeld immortal classic B movie. We're about to do Muppet Treasure Island. We're about to do a lot of fun stuff on that show. So definitely check that out. And you're going to want to check us out next week as well.
I have to interrupt you for a second here.
Yeah.
Because, Katie made a comment earlier where she said that this movie kind of reminded her of softcore at some times. And if you think that was true of this week's episode, just hold on to your hats until you know what's coming next week.
Yes, absolutely. We next week are going to be talking about a duology of films, 2 movies called Voodoo Academy and Voodoo Academy. Not Voodoo Academy 2, Voodoo Academy. They are the ones who they got the rights to the number 2, and they sold it. And these are truly wild, like gay softcore horror films from the late 2000s that have kind of become a bit of like the underground queer canon in an interesting way. So I think these are going to be pretty fun to talk about.
I mean, do you like listening to us? Do you like hunks in tidy whities? Because if the answer to both of those questions was yes, then you're really going to want to maybe watch Voodoo Academy and Voodoo Academy in preparation for next week.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of Dave Dakota joints on the shows so far, and I don't know that we've gotten to anything as outwardly softcore as we will be getting into next week. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
True. It's going to be a good time. So definitely check that out.
Oh, hell yeah.
Voodoo Academy and to Voodoo Academy. We will see you
Awesome.
next time.
Take care, everyone. Thank you again to Katie Hettenbach of Katie Afraidy for dropping by and taking a gamble with us in the haunted casino.
Ooh.
And meddling kids.
Roll them bones.